Please be standing for the chair of Lichfield and
Good evening all. We'll start with prayers from Ian Hayter.
We offer to you, O Lord, the troubles of this day. We lay down our burdens at your feet. Forgive our sins. Give us your peace. Loving God, we thank you once again for this district and for all who live and work in it. This evening, as elections approach, we thank you for all who have served this district over the time of this last council, both as elected councillors and as employed officers. We are grateful for their commitment to the life of this place, and we pray for those who will be leaving this council before the next meeting. We also this evening give you thanks for the life of Brian Pretty, who served this council and committee and community for so long. We pray for his family at this time and ask for your peace for them. We ask that the elections will be conducted with integrity and a real desire to bring about the best for this community. For all who will be elected, may they know your strength and wisdom in all that they do. And we pray for this evening's meeting, that all that is discussed and decided may be done with a sense of justice and equity. And may those who have to carry out the decisions made be given the resources that they need to do so to the best of their ability, so that this community may continue to prosper for the good of all. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
In opening, can I say how pleasant it is to see on a pre-election special that we've got so many people in the building, indoors, on an April night when the sun's shining. We'll start with those apologies from people who couldn't make it tonight.
Thank you, Chair. We've received an apology for absence from Councillor Gray.
Councillor Wilcox.
Councillor David Cross.
Okay, any other apologies? Okay, we'll go on to item 2, which is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Don't see any. Item 3 is the minutes of the previous meeting. Any comments on the previous minutes? We'll take those as read. Thank you. I'll sign those as a true record. Go on to item 4, which is the chairman's announcements, and the very first one I should make is about Brian Pretty. I think if we start with a minute's silence, please. Can I invite anybody who'd like to comment in terms of remembering Brian? Councillor Norman?
We're off the script, I think, now, but anyway, I only really knew Brian as a councillor the first 2 terms, so that I was elected here as Lichfield District Council, but arts was in his heart, and it's certainly the thing that kept him going. I think in later years, I tended to see him at the Guildhall in Lichfield, okay, with a pint in his hand, I suppose, and selling pints if he haven't got one. I know how much he's done for the arts in Lichfield City and beyond, and I just remember his sense of humour, and once you've gone to his wavelength, you understood his way of communicating as well, I think. So I'm sorry to hear about the bad news there, but it was good to have known him as a councillor in this chamber and later in Lichfield City with regard to the arts and his support there from them. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Fulham?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to Councillor Norby for his comments. I didn't know Brian in his role as a councillor. Clearly, I only knew him as a sort of a stalwart of the community. Through Fuse, I think we've met him several times in the bar at Fuse and a few more times as well. And it just really, the life of Brian, it's for me exactly what councillors should be. We should be representatives of the community that happen to meet here in the council chamber for the good of our community. I think Brian really has epitomised that type of community proud council that we could all aspire to be. Thank you.
Thank you. None of the speakers, I'll say that I remember Brian pretty well. I was on the council for an overlap with him quite significantly, both at the city and the district. From the district point of view, we have to thank him for a couple of big events that happen every year. One is Fuse, and one is the Real End Jazz and Blues weekend. And I remember Fuse and the fact that Brian was always one for having people that he knew that did things. So the success of Fuse was down to the fact that he knew people who wanted to perform, he knew people who wanted to supply the drinks, the food, etc., etc. And he just had that way of doing things, of being an organiser. And he was a bit like the John Peel of the arts in the area. He loved his art, he loved his music, and he was very much keen on the fact that there were up-and-coming bands or up-and-coming artists that he could put in front of the public. And such was the success of some of those acts that they went on to do great things after they'd been on Fuse or the Real Ale Jazz and Blues. And I was, again, likening him to music. When he started at the Fuse weekend on a Friday, it was like a 78 record, and showing my age now, but he used to start at a 78 pace, and then by about Saturday night, he was at 45, and by the Sunday, he was at 33 and a third. He was really struggling. His voice was going, and basically slowed down over the whole weekend. And that was Brian. He just loved it to the nth degree. For the record, he was a member of the council representing Chattermead Ward from 1991 to 2003, so quite a long-served member. During his terms on housing, employment development, finance and audit, leisure, and was vice chair of planning, but most remembered, as I say, to the arts contribution in the Lichfield district, including Melbourne. Okay, if I can go on to some of the other regular things that have happened in the preceding period since the last meeting. Quite a strong contrast between the visit of the Gloucesters to the cathedral, to also going and seeing the Masjid or the mosque in Lichfield. And I think the most strange one is only just last Sunday, where I was with the mayor of the city for the Cathedral to Castle dash, 10-mile dash. And we literally held up finish. We started out at Beacon Park and we held up the finish because it was one of those events with a big blow-up dirigible at the end where the runners ran through and it's a finish. And there was a power cut. So me and the 6-foot mayor of Lichfield finished up holding up the finish so that those people that were still finishing could do so until the power was restored, and then we walked away. I think it's already been said that there are a few people who are standing down from this council. We know of quite a few, and I'm going to call on various people who would like to express a word about that. Starting with Councillor Putnam.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for enlightening us about the glamorous life you've been leading over the last few weeks. As as was mentioned in our prayers earlier on, clearly this is the end of this 4-year term, or nearing the end of this 4-year term, and there are many councillors who are standing down. The councillors from right across our communities who have served their communities, and I'd say right across this chamber, has been absolutely outstanding, and makes me, and I think we can all be genuinely proud of what we've achieved individually and as a group across this chamber for our communities in a role that is as challenging as it is rewarding. And I'm sure we'll all have our own tales to tell of both challenges and rewards. We prayed earlier on for those who are leaving. I personally think perhaps the most fervent prayers should be held back for those of us who come back post-election. We will need those prayers to sustain us, no doubt. But in all seriousness, there are a number of councillors, Councillor Shirley Barnett, Councillor Janet Eagland, Councillor Christopher Spruce, Councillor David Latham, Councillor Kenny Humphreys, Councillor Ian Eadie, Councillor Rob Birch, Councillor Barry Gwilt, Councillor Alistair Little, and Councillor Brett Westwood, who have all decided not to seek election in these elections. I think it's really important that we take some time as a group and collectively to recognise the contributions that they've made to this council over not just the 4 years, but for many, many years preceding that, not looking at any people in particular. So, Chairman, can I first of all add my thanks to them for everything they've done for this council, but I also know that some of my colleagues wish to speak about their portfolios as well. Thank you, Chairman.
I'm going to call Councillor Eagland next, who specifically asked to speak.
Well, good evening, everyone. To tell you that the chairman has kindly given me permission to make my farewell to you, my colleagues, and to this council chamber. You may be aware that I won't be seeking re-election in May. I feel that it is time for me to retire and make way for others to bring new and fresh ideas into running this council. It has not been an easy decision to make, for I enjoy my days here in the council representing the people who trusted and voted for me. Since 1991, I've been an elected member of this council, with the exception of a blip of 2 years. During these years, I have seen 4 CEOs, including to date, 4 Conservative and 1 Labour leaders of this council. Not forgetting my own experience of having the honour of being elected as your chairman. During my year in office, Lichfield District had the honour of entertaining the then Queen Elizabeth and the Duke of Edinburgh and other members of the royal family for the official opening of the National Memorial Arboretum. Some of you will remember that week we had horrendous weather. It rained so much, some parts of the NMA was flooded. However, the CEO at the time, Nina Dawes, and her officers managed to get the area clear, and on the actual day, the sun came out and all was well. It seems strange not attending meetings here in the LDC. However, times are changing and I must change with them. I will continue to be a member of the Conservative Party. I have no doubt come the local elections in May, I will once again leave this council in good hands. With a new multi-screen cinema, a new swimming pool, the new development on Birmingham Road taking place, what a future Lichfield holds for its people. Well, colleagues, that is my farewell to you and to this lovely building. I wish you all the very best for the future, regardless of your political agenda. Thank you for listening.
Next to speak is Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. First, I'd like to thank all councillors that are standing down this time, and all parties, all sides of the house. Everybody in this chamber is here for one reason only, and that is to make Lichfield District a better place to live and work in. So, congratulations to everyone, thanks to them. Specifically, I'd like to say a few words about Councillor Eadie, Chair. Councillor Eadie and I both joined the council together 12 years ago. I remember it well. Chair, Ian is one of the most selfless and hard-working people that I know. He joined this council to make a difference and to improve our district, and he's worked tirelessly at this since his first day. He certainly wasn't motivated by the money. I know this for sure, as we were driving back in the car together from the election results, and Ian looked in the black folder we were given in those days with all the info needed to be a good councillor. He then said, "Hang on, mate, we get an allowance for doing this. Neither of us knew this or cared. This sums Ian up. He has done this role for the greater good and nothing else." Ian quite rightly joined the cabinet relatively soon after being on the council, and barring a small hiatus, he has been there ever since. Chair, he's done a fantastic job. Lemsley and the district of Lichfield are most definitely a better place. As Deputy Leader to Doug, I know for a fact that Doug has found him a massive support, and he has stepped in brilliantly where needed in that role. I am very sorry to lose Ian as a fellow running mate in Lemsley. This election for me just won't be the same without you. Mind you, naturally, we haven't always seen eye to eye on every issue, but that window was very small. Having said all that, Chair, Ian's reasons for stepping down are also massively correct, and ones that I'm particularly envious of. He has now sold his business, and the next 2 or 3 years, he'll be looking forward to retirement and then more travelling with his family. Chair, I would like to wish Ian all the best in his next phase of a much more relaxed life. All the best, mate. Thank you, Chair.
Next, I call upon Councillor Matthews.
Chair, I also wish well to all the retiring members. However, I rise particularly to pay tribute to Councillor Chris Bruce, my fellow St John's Ward councillor, who is standing down in May after serving 12 years as a district councillor. Chris has a long and distinguished service with the council, and during this time he has held several senior positions, including cabinet member for finance and chair of finance and audit committees, as well as serving on other committees as well. Chris's grasp and knowledge of all matters financial is second to none. Always a sound voice in any debate where money was discussed. I was privileged when elected in 2015 to be mentored by Chris from my first period of office, and his wise words and direction have always served me well. We're going to miss you, Chris. It's been a privilege knowing you and working with you. I wish you a healthy and happy retirement from all your colleagues and all at St John's. You have served steadfastly over those 12 years. Thank you, Chris.
Next to speak is Councillor White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd first of all like to pay tribute to Councillor Latham, who's my fellow ward councillor who's standing down this time round. So thank you, David, for everything you've done, supporting me at parish council meetings in particular, attending parish council meetings diligently in a way that I struggle to have done. But in particular, I rise to speak about Janet Eagland. Normally, you have to wait until you're dead for these things to happen. So I thought, let's not wait. Let's do the tribute before she goes. Janet said, Janet, there's nothing going to be embarrassing, honestly. Honestly. Janet said in her speech that she'd been chair of the authority, and she did so with such great aplomb and carried it off absolutely brilliantly. But there's just a few things that I wanted to point out about Janet that she obviously couldn't mention herself. First of all, she's been tremendously dedicated to her political party. And I know on all sides of the chamber, we're all dedicated to our political parties to a greater or lesser extent. And we put in the hard yards, even though sometimes we disagree with some of the stuff that we hear. The other attribute that Janet has is that she is tremendously loyal. For those, I don't know what the Labour group meetings are like, but sometimes we have minor disagreements that go on within our group meetings. No, you don't. No. Okay, that's just us. But it doesn't matter what disagreements we may or may not have internally. Janet has always been so loyal to the decision that has been made and has never let the side down at all in my entire time of knowing her for 20 years. It is impossible to point out the fact that one or two of us over the years may have fallen out with Janet. No. But she has the power of forgiveness, and that allows us to move on every single time we do have a falling out. And we do move on, and we do get on with delivering on the bigger agenda. It was said that there was a rumour that there's a possibility during lockdown when we were on Teams and Zoom that Jan might have been sipping a G&T during the meetings. The truth of the matter is, and I can reassure you, it was fizzy water. My final point about Jan is, of course, and I can't go without saying it, is Keith. Keith has been an absolute rock to Jan, and on occasions where perhaps Jan's not been feeling too good or not able to get around, Keith has been able to support her. And when she was chair of the authority, both here and Staffordshire County Council, Keith was absolutely wonderful. What a wonderful husband you have there, Jan, supporting you all the way through this. Because actually, being a councillor, you have to give up a lot, and your spouse has to support you through that because you're here and you're not at home doing family stuff. To everybody, we all work really hard at being councillors, and we have some ups and downs and some ins and outs and a bit of feistiness from time to time. But everybody works really hard as councillors. It's a really tough job because no matter which political party you are or of none, you can't often get it right for your electorate. Sometimes you do, but sometimes you don't. And I hope that through the ups and downs, we can walk away from this still being friends. I've always had superstitions about elections. And so tonight, 20 years after first becoming elected as a councillor, I've come tonight on my motorbike, the same as I used to do 20 years ago. Because I don't know if this is my last council meeting, because it's the electorate that decide whether it is or not me. So to everybody who's standing for election, best of luck, okay, because you do all work hard and it really is great to work with you. Sometimes it's better than others, but notwithstanding that, thank you very much indeed, Mr. Chairman.
Any other speakers? Councillor Norman.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to carry on with the praise to the Conservative members, although there are a number of them that I think have been doing their job as well as they can, as well as they should. They've been doing a great job as far as they're concerned, as far as I'm concerned, as far as the electorate ought to be concerned. I'll just refer back to that shortly. But just the two members on my side that are willingly standing down. Rob Burchard, just behind me, got another big election on his plate, as some may know, which is for Unison. And although you can't vote for him unless you join, well, probably can't even vote for him if you join now, probably can you? But he's got a big job there. And I've appreciated the work and support he's given over the 4 years he's been here. It's a great shame to see him go, but as I say, he's got other roles to play. I'll just say that his text used to be sort of 10 times longer than the text to him that you got back, but there was never a typo. And this is probably because he was in forensics. And there's just never... Yes, it's the choosing. Just to say, I'm missing Rob there. I hope he'll be back at some point in the future when he's finished with Unison, as it were. The other member that we've got now is Brad Westwood, who was a very young member, still is a young member, but his job changed. He had more time needed for that job, and hopefully he'll be back again. But I'm sorry to see him go. Just very briefly, really, which is we talked about those who are volunteering to go, and there has been an allusion to those who may not be volunteering to go, but find themselves not here again after May the 4th. My first election was the last quarter of the last century, and I was looking forward to joining a very young councillor, city councillor at the time, who was absolutely brilliant. And she was actually into the environment before most councillors were. And then watching on TV, the opposition candidate, who was a very nice chap, but very thick actually, and a very nice chap. His wife ran off with the parish clerk. This was on the TV news, right? So I thought, great, it's in the bag. No, he got a sympathy vote, a massive sympathy vote, I think. She was not re-elected. So I'm just saying, I want to say to
any of those who may not be back, I mean, any of us that may not be back after May the 4th, don't take it personal. The only qualification for deciding your fate is age and geography, if you live in the district. And there's no comeback, you can't cross-examine the voters afterwards. And so please don't take it personal. If you are one of those that don't make it, then I shall shake your hand on the night if that is the case. So, you know, as has already been said, people put themselves out, especially in the days of social media, where I'm used to have anonymous letters to me and anonymous letters in the press, but you know, it's even worse now on Twitter and so on, as some of us know. But you know, keep up the good work outside of the council if you're not back on one. Thank you for indulging me in that, Chair.
Councillor Mike Wilcox.
Thank you, Chair. As the leader stated, we've come to the end of a 4-year electoral cycle now when we say thank you to those for whatever reason decided to call this a day. And that loss, I feel, this year will be even greater with us losing so much experience and wisdom from this chamber. The two people I want to talk about and way forward, it's Shirley Barnes, my old friend from Colton, and Chris Bruce. Shirley, who represents Colton and the Midways, and Chris, who represents St John's Wood in the city. I will probably be corrected by Shirley when I start, but here we go. Shirley and I go back a long, long way. And I put down here, Shirley, over 25 years. But it may well be a lot more than that. As both of us resided in Colton at the time. Shirley's still there, I moved out. Shirley served on a number of committees from 2011, including Strategic Overview and Scrutiny, where she was the Vice Chair, as well as sitting on Employment and Reg and Licensing. However, Shirley's passion was the parish councils, particularly within her ward, and she was never slow in coming forward and saying, what are we doing to make sure the parish councils are on board with everything that we're doing here at the district? She had a belief that we needed to make sure that they were kept up to speed with what we were doing, as they were the voice of the people locally. So it came as no surprise to her when I asked her to chair the parish forum. That this being the platform that we had in those days where parish councils met together here in the district. To Shirley's credit, she did manage to increase engagement and encourage attendance by the parishes, mainly through having agendas that were of interest to the parishes and some of which they felt they could actually contribute to. I know how much the parish council has meant to Shirley because frequently, she would get us in the middle of our group meeting and say, I'm off now. And I said, where are you going? I'm going to my parish council. And it didn't really matter what I said, Shirley was going to the parish council. So for the most of the time she spent on the council, she missed probably the most important bits that were being said because she was on her way to the parish. But seriously, Shirley, I know how important you still maintain the parishes are in the district. So Shirley, thank you for your contribution, particularly around the work you did as chair of the forum with the parish councils, forging that close relationship with the district. And can I wish you all the very best, whatever you do in the future.
I will let you reply, and then I'll take Councillor Howard after that. Councillor Barnett, would you like to reply?
Typical.
In a word, tonight for me is very emotional.
Because over the years, and I can speak plural years, I've known, like Mike and Joe, a goodly while now, through one way or another. It is, to a certain extent, it's almost a vocation, I think, being a councillor, because you've got to believe in what you're doing. On the other hand, you've got to know when to ask advice. And sometimes, if you ask advice, you save yourself a lot of embarrassment. Because the officers, I have never known an officer in this council who has not been supportive and helpful if I've ever rung them. I also know I've thanked them time and again for their patience, because I think they must roll their eyes and think, oh God, not again. but it has been worthwhile. The other thing I would say is you are all teachers. Because when I came, yes, I was very involved with the parish councils and hope to get in the future. But coming onto the district is a totally different setup. And I learned so much from sitting, listening and watching how people behave in debate, what they wanted to say and how it was said. And there are watching Janet and following Janet and Margaret was wonderful. And also Sue Woodward, because they are teachers of the highest caliber that you don't think you are, because what you're doing is what in essence you're trained to do because of your experience. But just be aware that you are on show and you do represent something slightly bigger than what you are. So I thank you, Mike, but you need to remind me of the years. That's the one thing I don't need to be reminded of the years, but you're right, we do go back a long way. So Chairman, thank you, and thank you for your patience in listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Chris. I first met Chris following the election in 2011, and it soon became apparent in conversations with him and other members of the council who knew Chris what he could bring to the council following a distinguished career in finance and accountancy. How right they were. Chris stuck to the role of cabinet member for finance like a duck to water. His wealth of experience in this field made him the one choice to take over the finance portfolio at a time when this authority, like many others, was struggling and recovering from the financial crisis that affected us all. His steady, calming and logical approach to our finances were exactly what was needed at the time. And his involvement in many service reviews that were being undertaken allowed him to vigorously challenge the figures and saving assumptions that were being proposed. Chris's attention to detail was evident, and he would frequently request meetings with the finance team to go through his papers before any meeting where he was giving financial information on. One of those very young officers at the time was a young chap called Anthony Thomas. I think Chris would not mind me saying that he was the one person, above all, apart from the rest of the cabinet who had failed to actually persuade Anthony to take on the role that he presently has. And what a great job this young chap has done and is doing and continues to do so. After leaving cabinet, Chris took on the role of chair of audit and member standards and again put his heart and soul into this. And I know it's been said on many occasions that his chairmanship has been second to none. And indeed, it will certainly be a hard act to follow. Chris and myself have become great friends over the years. And Chris, Ian Pritchard and myself meet regularly to reminisce over a pint or two about our time spent on cabinet together. Latterly, Chris and myself have sat next to each other on the back benches and have enjoyed listening and occasionally joining in the debates. That was until we were both asked to take on chairmanship roles, which I know he and I have thoroughly enjoyed. Chris, I know everyone here will join me in thanking you so much for your contribution and your dedication to this district and to this council, particularly in the finance of this authority. And we wish you well in whatever you decide to do in the future.
Next to speak is Councillor Hone.
Thank you, Chair. Fellow councillors, tonight I would like to take a moment to pay tribute to our esteemed colleague and friend, Ken Humphreys, who has been serving as a local councillor for 2 decades now. I have had the pleasure of knowing Ken for many years, even before I became a councillor myself, and I have always been inspired by his unwavering commitment and dedication to our community. As many of you know, Ken has served on Birtle Town Council in the past and has also held various senior positions, including chair of this council and chair of the Employment Committee. His contributions to our community have been invaluable, and his passion for making Burnford a better place has been truly inspiring. Ken's decision not to stand for re-election this year will undoubtedly leave a big void in our council, but his legacy will live on and his contributions to our district will never be forgotten. So on behalf of this council and Burntwood, I would like to thank Ken for his many years of public service and dedication. We wish him well in his retirement from this council. Thank you, Ken, for everything you've done in this community. And Chair, whilst I'm on my feet, if I may pay a mini tribute to another individual. For the past 4 years, I have been very lucky to be the vice chair of 2 amazing chairs of the Audit and Member Standards Committee, yourself and also Councillor Spruce. I've learned a lot about audit in the public sector and also what it takes to be a fair and effective chair. And also, due to an exemplary attendance record, I've actually never had to chair a meeting, apart from once when Councillor Bruce was kind enough to become poorly, so I could do my first one. So thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Next is Councillor Anketel. Did you indicate? Oh, sorry. If there are no other indications, oh, there is one, Councillor Sylvester Hall.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. I know that Councillor Wise has already mentioned a few words with regards to Councillor Latham, who is also a long-standing member of this council, having joined in 2011. So you'll be pleased to know it doesn't account for all of those years, but there is a few words that I would like to say. Those of us that are sat around these tables in this chamber know exactly what the demands are about being a committed councillor who cares about where we all live. And Councillor Latham has certainly demonstrated his commitment and care for the district with his fastidious approach to casework, representing the council with aplomb at outside bodies, and to respond with absolute dedication when called upon to assume various roles within those 12 years of service, including Chair of ONS Committee, Cabinet Member for Leisure Parks and Waste, and also Chair of this council. As well as his support to the council and residents, Councillor Latham has also been depended upon to introduce a number of us new councillors to this environment. Having asked around, the same words are used to describe Councillor Latham: friendly and absolutely community-minded. So I'd certainly agree with that, Chair, and from myself and the others who have benefited from that support over recent years especially, a sincere thank you to you, Councillor Latham.
If there are no other indications, it falls to me to mention a couple of other people who haven't been mentioned by their leaders or supporters. Councillor Alistair Little, who was Chair of Strategic ONS Committee during his time with the council, is with us for 4 years, as was Councillor Gwilt, who had 4 years, but also Chair of Council, Vice Chair of Community Health and Housing, and Vice Chair of Strategic. So thank you for those contributions. I think it's been said that those are the people that know that they're not coming back. There are some others that don't know they're not coming back. I'm in the wonderful position that I know exactly which chair I'm going to be in 23rd of May, because I sit in this chair, and I'm the only one in the room that knows where he will be, she will be on the 23rd of May. Barring any, oh, sorry, Brian, yeah, Councillor Yates as well, sorry, the two of us. You propose, I'll second. I will also at this stage mention that the tyre sale went extremely well. We sold 18 tyres for my charity, Easy IT, and Councillor Salter is modelling one as we speak. I've decided that because we're having such a changeover of councillor, I will hold the sale open till at least the 23rd of May. So if you know of anybody that's been elected who wants to have one of the tyres, there will be a small stock still available. And the only other tyre item that I should mention is that there are going to be some food and drink upstairs. So all those people who are leaving and all those people who don't know they're leaving can all console each other and say cheerio all at the same time upstairs in the committee room. So you're welcome to come for food and drink. We'll move on to item 5, which is the report of the leader and Councillor Pollard.
Thank you very much, Chair. This is the report of the Leader of the Council. So Cabinet decisions from the 7th of March 2023. Number 1, the Staffordshire Sustainability Board Communications Plan. Number 2, the local council tax supporting policies. And number 3, being a better council 1-year review. Generally, just a few words on that on being a better council one year review in terms of the impact of that programme that has been running. It is fair to say it's been generating national attention, and it has stripped out or made us cost savings of almost £1 million. And I know that I think that the political mantra is usually something along the lines of we'll protect frontline services while saving costs or something like that. Actually, what we've been able to do at Lichfield District Council is not only protect the costs but also improve the services at the same time, which I think is a fantastic testament to the work that our Chief Executive and his team have been doing. And we look forward to seeing that continuing over the coming years. Item number 4 is the Housing Pathways Scheme contract. So we're on to the 4th debate on that. So the Housing Pathways Scheme contract. And again, I would say on that, a brilliant example of how a district council can take something that's typically reserved for larger unitaries and taking a scheme which works incredibly well. It's not just about providing physical roofs over people's heads, but actually providing them the wraparound support they need, not only to have some accommodation, but actually to rebuild their lives. This is not something that district councils do up and down the country. It is something that we're doing here in Lichfield District, and we can see the improvement that it's making, not just for rough sleepers, but for everyone who's at risk of homelessness within the district. Cabinet member decisions then, Chair. Number 5 is the write-off of council tax debt relating to current local council tax support payments. Number 6, which I'd imagine will generate a high level of debate, is the hybrid and bulk mail solution. No questions on that. Right. Number 7 is the revised housing assistance policy. Councillor Evans, if you don't come back after this year, please know that disabled facilities grants are safe in this authority's hands. After however many years of talking about it, we have brought disabled facilities grants back in-house, and I expect us to see a firm uptick in the speed that we get in disabled facilities grants out to people, as well as an improvement in the policy. However, it will be the electorate to decide that, as Councillor White quite rightly pointed out. Number 8 is the reallocation of Section 106 funds, and there are a number of schemes that this council has supported with those allocations. And I think somebody might want to speak about that.
Thank you, Chairman. On behalf of both St Stephen's Church, Bradley and Street Hay Parish Council, I'd like to thank the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Economic Growth and Development for the award of these funds. They will be put to good use and just shows that actually putting stuff back into the community, into the parishes, surely, and I thought Councillor Barnett may want to have spoken on the first one. It's a good thing to do, and it's really good to see this money being spent back in locally in the parishes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 6, which is the report of overview and scrutiny committee, and back with Councillor Mark Wilcox.
Thank you, Chair. I submit the minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of March 2023.
And the seconded?
Second, Chair.
Back to you.
Thank you, Chair. Overview and Scrutiny Committee, 16th of March 2023. Present. Apologies for absence. Declarations of interests. Minutes of the previous meeting. Burnwood Health and Wellbeing Centre.
Councillor Norman.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say that the layout of the room then is one I've always wanted when you're interviewing, interviewing witnesses, if you like, or people who want to cross-examine over matters. And that was excellent, I thought. And I thought it was a very good meeting, and they're coming back again, so we didn't frighten them. That's also good. Obviously, we learned that it was the government that is actually forcing them not to actually consult with the patients. Those almost 5,000 patients are being banished to other overstressed GPs, and so we couldn't get them on that. We'd have to have an MP down, I think, to do that. So I thought that was a very good meeting, and I look forward to meeting them again, depending on May the 4th.
Back with you, Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you, Chair. 52, the George Bryan Centre. 53, Health Matters.
Councillor Norman.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. It's just that I mentioned the layout of the room for health matters, and they did, this is at the county, but the district it worked. I do hope if there's any leaders of any other local authorities that have responsibility for health scrutiny will compare that with what's happening at the county, which is in the council chamber. And the reason why I mention it is because you cannot hear what the witnesses are saying. They're on a screen. You can just about see the faces. Sometimes you can see somebody's lip move. It's only when I got back that I'm going to complain about this on Twitter. And then unfortunately, if you go and look at the recording of the meeting itself, you can actually see and hear what they're saying. But if you're in the room doing your job or trying to do your job, you can't do that. It's a ridiculous room. The one I moved out of straight away when I became chair of the Education Scrutiny Committee at the time. We had one meeting there and that was it. I do hope that anybody's listening who might be at another authority and other members of an authority can look at that and see a better way of actually conducting health scrutiny, which I would suggest would be in the oak room, but I think we can lead there. So thank you.
So Councillor Robertson.
There we go. Thank you, Chair. And just one slight matter for accuracy in relation to this minute. The part that's in parentheses there talks about £550,000 for additional GP capacity source at regional power station sites. That's too long a sentence to try and get out following another one. Apologies. It was me that was making that comment. The sum that I referred to was £620,000 across the districts, including another one. So if we could potentially just update that from the point where it's the pound sign to £620,000 for additional GP capacity source across the district. Be a more accurate reflection of the meeting.
Do you have any comments on that, Councillor Wilcox?
No, Chair.
Okay, we'll liaise with the officers and have that adjusted. Anything else on the agenda? 54?
Yes, there is, Chair. 54, notice of tax group.
Councillor Norman?
I could have tipped my chairman off, but I didn't. Sorry about that. But anyway, there's nothing difficult for him. So the notes of the task group there, I just recommend to all members of this council and outside of that matter to read the internal auditor's report on the situation, which all it did was confirm what I looked at and what the task group looked at and the delays in matters there. So I do recommend that members of the council read that internal report on climate change following the climate change emergency made in 2019. Thank you.
Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you, Chairman. 53, work programme.
Yeah.
Or 55, yeah. 56, voter ID update. 57, exclusion of the public and press. 58, in private notes from the task groups, and 59, confidential minutes of the previous meeting. Can I, at this juncture, please, Mr. Chairman, just thank most heartily all the members of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Since I took over, I've really been impressed with the level of dedication and level of commitment that people have put into this committee. I also want to pay tribute to my vice chairman, who has on occasion stepped in for me and has kept me and has also kept me on the straight and narrow in Overview and Scrutiny meetings. And also pay tribute to the previous chairman, Councillor David Latham, who set all this up for me to take over from. So thank you to all those members who participated and took part. I hope that many of you will be re-elected and come back and continue to play this vital role of this committee, making sure that we hold account the leadership as well as the executive, and that we're making sure that we're making good policies and good decisions for the people that we represent. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next item, which is that's of the Planning Committee, item 7. For Councillor Marshall.
Chairman, thank you very much. Just before I launch into the formalities, can I just say, if I'm allowed to go off piste for a moment, to echo almost the words of Councillor Wilcox in his capacity as chairman of his committee. I've had the privilege to be chairman of the Planning Committee for some years now, and I am indebted to the work of my vice chair, Councillor Baker, sitting behind me. She has been an extremely dutiful and hard-working vice chair, and I'm extremely grateful to her. And also, I've had myriad members of this council serve as members on the planning committee. It has changed around occasionally, and I am very grateful to everyone who has served so well. It's not an easy committee to be on, but then none of the committees are easy, are they? They're all quite involved and time consuming. Some of our reports are quite lengthy and involved, and I know that many of the members spend their days prior to meetings preparing, and I'm extremely grateful. It has been, as I say, a huge privilege to be chairman, and whether I come back as a member of this council remains to be seen. Whether I will ever serve on a planning committee again remains to be seen. It is all in the lap of the gods. One of the reasons why I got dressed up this evening with putting a waistcoat on was because I realised this could well be my last meeting here in this council chamber. So perhaps I hope I'm not tempting fate by saying that. If I may also say that Councillor Humphreys, who I'm very sorry to see is leaving us this council, he didn't intimate this evening that he did send his apologies to the last meeting on the 3rd of April. Unfortunately, those apologies never reached me because there was a problem with his email. So retrospectively, and I realise it can't be noted particularly, but I am grateful for the fact that he did send his apologies, although they weren't apparent at the time, Chairman. Thank you very much. Right, if I now go on to the script, from which I so ungraciously deviated just a few moments ago. I move that the proceedings of the planning committee meetings on the 27th of February, the 6th of March and the 3rd of April 2023 be received and, where necessary, approved and adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Can I have a second, please?
That'll be me. I'm happy to second the minutes of those 3 meetings.
Thank you. I'll take those through by page number, the 27th of February, page 25, page 26, and then for the 6th of March, page 27, 28, 29, 30, and for the 3rd of April, page 31. Councillor Evans.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm rising to raise a concern and a request here, so that I might not get another opportunity at all. We don't know what's going to happen, as everybody has said, but it's regarding item 54, which was the first application for the installation of a solar farm on page 31. This is an important application which does matter to an awful lot of people, and that was evidenced by the large number of the public who attended to hear the application. At the commencement, the chair advised that he thought the classification of the land as 3B was incorrect, and this needed to be determined before a decision was made. That was fine, and eventually the application was deferred, as you will see. However, before we reached deferment, the chair suggested that the final decision could be left with him and the officers. And this is my grave concern, as I really am of the belief that an important application such as this should always be brought before the planning committee to determine. The public have the right to know it is being scrutinised properly and how the decision is reached. This, after all, is, in my view, the purpose of the planning committee. So, as none of us know what the outcome will be in May, although we live in hope, and there isn't another planning meeting scheduled until June, I'm just asking that all major applications are brought before committee rather than be delegated to the chair and officers, as this may well have been. This is not fair, and certainly it's not, in my view, what democracy is all about. And of course, it is vitally important that a precedent is not set for the future.
Councillor Birch, can I just ask whether you've got a different comment, or is it on the same matter? Same matter. Can I just speak?
Thank you, Chair. I feel I should strongly agree with the points made by Councillor Evans. I don't feel it would be fair to the public to have determined this application on what was potentially incorrect information and assumptions. Although I won't be on any future planning committee meetings, I do feel that the future committee members must ensure they don't fall into the habit of deferring decisions to be made by the chair and officers, unless that is absolutely necessary. But they should be certain of the facts of any application and make the decisions themselves, as the public deserve no less, as do the applicants for the planning applications. And that must take place following properly informed debate. I do feel that in this instance, we would have made a spurious decision on potentially incorrect information, and then it would have been an ill-informed debate as opposed to a robust informed one. Thank you.
Okay, I'll bring in Councillor Marshall to respond.
Councillor Chairman, may I just say that I actually concur with both of the speakers, and I don't wish to suggest that they've got this wrong, but I think my interpretation of this is slightly different. Now, at no point has this been suggested that I, in communication with the officers, would determine this application. I think what we have done, and if I look at the minutes as well, if I may just read out verbatim, resolved that this planning application be deferred as concern was raised with regard to the agricultural land classification being 3B. Further investigations were required by officers in consultation with the chair to ascertain if the classification was above 3B before the determination of the application. Now, the determination of the application, in my view, is not going to be outside of the planning committee. This will come back to the planning committee. I'm certain of that. And that is my wish at this point. And I will have communication with the officers prior to the election day to make sure that it is resolved, that it does come to the planning committee. At no point did I consider this to be a matter for determination by myself with planning officers. That was never ever determined in that sense. So I'm not taking issue with the two speakers. I actually concur with their view that it's very important that this does come back to the planning committee. I hope that that satisfies both speakers with their concerns. Thank you, Chairman.
Are you happy with that assurance? I think it is a good assurance. Okay. Well, I think that the chairman of the committee has given assurance that the interpretation of the minutes is correct, that it's to be determined as a planning matter once the investigation has taken place. Okay, Councillor Marshall.
Chair, if I could just say, we're talking about a rather esoteric point here, which has never come up, I don't think, at one of our planning committees. And the fact that it is a rather specialist item. All we're trying to do is to determine exactly the facts, because the facts as reported in the planning report which came to all members of the planning committee, I consider was inaccurate. And in fact, there is evidence in some of the reports which have been submitted for determination of this, which actually do not coincide with the report that we received. My wish was that we had a proper investigation of the matter before it came back to planning committee. That is all I have asked for, and that is all that I understand will be happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Norman?
I just request a point of clarification. Can I ask through your chair, does the chair of planning see the report before they're issued?
Do you mean the minutes?
No, the reports, the one that he's disputed.
Councillor Marshall, would you like to respond?
Chairman, yes, indeed. We get a report 10 days, it's published 10 days before we actually have the planning committee meeting. So it's normally the Friday week prior to planning on the Monday. That report is quite lengthy, so I went through that. I also then, as I often do, is I refer to some of the submissions made by the applicants and by objectors. And reading over the weekend the various submissions, I saw that there was a dissonance between the report and the evidence which had been submitted, both by the applicant and by objectors. And it was that dissonance in the information which led me to come to the conclusion that I felt very, very unhappy about it being determined until we had clarified certain issues. I hope that satisfies the situation. Thank you.
Would you like to continue, Councillor Marshall?
Chairman, I think that's everything, isn't it?
Oh, sorry, it's me reading the pages.
Yeah, thank you.
Page 31, page 32, page 33, That does conclude that item. I'll move on to item 8, which is the minute of audit and member standards. Councillor Home.
Thank you, Chair. I move that the proceedings of the Audit and Member Standards Committee meeting on 23rd of March 2023 be received and, where necessary, approved and adopted.
And we have a seconder, Councillor Mike Wilcox.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second the minutes.
Okay. I'll take those by minute number. First of all, item 1, apologies for absence. Item 2, declarations of interest. Item 3, minutes of the previous meeting. Item 4, public sector internal audit standards, external quality assessment. Catchy title. Item 5, internal audit plan, charter and protocol for 23-24. Item 6, review of the effectiveness of the Audit and Member Standards Committee. And item 7, the work programme. Happy to accept those. We move on to item 9, the minutes of regulation and licensing. Sorry, Councillor Spruce, sorry, you did indicate, yes, sorry. Councillor Spruce.
Thank you, Chair. I did miss chairing this meeting because I was in hospital, but I wanted to give Councillor Whaley a bit of a go at it anyway. But before I finish, I would like to outline the work of this committee. It is undoubtedly, in my opinion, been the most effective committee I've ever served on in local government. For several reasons. Firstly, and particularly, the excellent, committed, hard-working members who read all the papers diligently, ask lots of pertinent and difficult questions. We have a number of big hitters on this committee from all sides of the council. And it was interesting in the internal independent review, score this year 198 out of 200. I mean, that is seriously effective. We have excellent officers, particularly Anthony Thomas, our 151 officer and his staff, and Andrew Wood, our head of internal audit and his staff, both who run very excellent teams. Thirdly, the unwavering support of our Chief Executive, Simon Fletcher, and the leader of the council, Rick Bullen, for their absolutely unwavering support of this committee. You can have all the policies you like, you can have all the governance procedures that you like, but if they're not implemented with a bit of vim and what have you, and every time we've been unhappy with something in this committee, I've gone to Simon and or Doug, or both, and immediately have their attention and their full support. And it's very noticeable that the Chief Executive and his leadership team and Doug and his cabinet have always given us this unwavering support. And it's absolutely vital because support from the top flows down through the council and has an effect on everybody who does it with. As you all know now, this is my final time before council, and I wish to record the pleasure I've had in chairing this audit committee during this council period. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spruce. We'll move on to the minutes of regulatory and licensing, and I call upon the chairman, Councillor Brian Yates.
Thank you, Chair. I move that the proceedings of the Regulation and Licensing Committee meeting held on the 1st of March 2023 be received and, where necessary, approved and adopted.
Okay, I'll take a seconder. Councillor Chetland.
Thank you, Chair. I'll have to second.
I'll take them by minutes number. Item 20 is apologies. 21, declarations of interest. 22, minutes of the previous meeting. 23, polling places, local elections 2023. 24, taxi licensing update. 25, events and street trading update. And 26, the work programme. Happy with the minutes as a whole. Which brings us to item 10, the Greater Birmingham and Solihull left. Call upon the leader, Councillor Bullen.
Thank you, Chairman. As many of you will know, the Lichfield District Council has been a member of both Greater Birmingham and Solihull
local enterprise partnership and serving staff to local enterprise partnership for a number of years now. The government have decreed from upon high that it can only belong to one LEP, and where combined authority exists, that the LEP and the combined authority must combine together, which means that local Lichfield District Council will need to leave Greater Birmingham and Solihull Local Enterprise Partnership. As a founding member of that LEP, we are required to agree to a change in the Articles of Association, which is what this paper is seeking to do. So not only to note the fact that we will be leaving the LEP, but it is also authorising the LEP to reconstitute as Birmingham City Council and Solihull Borough within the combined authority. So the recommendations are there, Chairman, at 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3. I know that this district council has been a tremendously active player within the map and well above its weight. With Councillor Wilcox, his time on there, and Councillor Eady, who deputised for me probably more times than I would like to imagine. But those are recommendations in front of you. 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. Happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
And it's been seconded by Councillor Mike Wilcox.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm happy to second the report.
Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wish to respond in terms of my time as on the scrutiny committee of the Greater Birmingham LEP. The only one, I think there might have been another, that operated. And I think the scrutiny process of the LEPs was very, very important. And I certainly took the really honour of being the very first scrutiny chairman of that body. And I think we were effective, we were holding them to task, etc., ensuring the decisions that were being made were the correct decisions and so forth. So I think it's important to know, not just only onto the LEP, but in terms of the scrutiny process that we were involved in as an authority. And I know that certainly when I was no longer a member of that panel, that Councillor Latham and Councillor Wilcox took representation on that body, and I think it's absolutely crucial. So it could be that it was pioneering, but unfortunately we are where we are because of what, in terms of the government's decision we had to make, wasn't our decision. Might have thought personally of you, where I would like to be, but it wasn't for us to be making that decision. We have to accept these reports presented us to this evening. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Norman.
Only in the spirit of end of term, really, just to say that Councillor Richard Cox is quite correct about himself. He did a good job on scrutiny. He did raise the issue, and I'd just like to say I support what he said there. He did a good job. Thank you.
No other indications. We've had the recommendations 2.1, 2.2, 2.3 proposed and seconded. Is everybody happy with accepting those? Thank you. Item 11 is the update to the Constitution. Back with Councillor Fulham.
Thank you, Chairman. As I frequently remind our officers, the power of this council sits in this chamber. Some of that is delegated to me, and some of it is delegated down to our cabinet, and some of that is delegated down to our officers as well. So it's really important that we get the Constitution right to ensure that we have the right powers delegated to the right people at the right time. This paper is really just ensuring the Constitution is fit for purpose. In particular, at 1.33, you'll see in terms of delegations in respect of building control, and furthermore about how the existing delegations, the Chief Operating Officer and Assistant Directors to set various things exists. This is really a bit of housekeeping, really important bit of housekeeping, but it is a piece of housekeeping. And the recommendations are at 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3. Thank you, Chair.
And to second this, we have Councillor Marshall.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm delighted to second this proposal. Thank you.
Any discussion on it? No? All those in favour? It's carried. Brings us to item 12, and I'll need to remind you that these are questions submitted by members prior to the meeting. The answers have been circulated by email. They went out today. So all the questions have been answered, but members who submitted them are entitled to ask one supplementary question It does need to be supplementary as in the same subject matter, and it does need to be a question. So we'll start with question one, which was launched by Councillor Wilcox, Mike Wilcox. Do you have a supplementary?
I do not, Chair.
Okay, no further discussion. Question two is from Councillor Robertson. Do you have a supplementary?
No, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Robertson, you also have question three. Do you have a supplementary on that one?
No.
We raised it through the agenda. I thought this might go on longer. Question four is from Councillor Alistair Yates. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Yates? Actually, sorry.
Am I gone already? Thank you. I'll keep this brief. I've got 3 pages of context before I get to the question, if that's all right, which you sent over to me as normal. What are your plans, Leader, for the next 4 years?
Oh, that's such a good question, Councillor. I thought you were going to not ask a supplementary and hope that tradition continued, but very good question. We have had a tremendous 4 years, and obviously we all hope that we will be able to carry out our plans in the next 4 years. But residents right across the district will have had a leaflet telling them not only how many votes they have in their local board, but it will also tell them 6 other things as well. It will tell them that we will continue to keep council tax low. It will tell them that we will have a design code brought into Lichfield district, so that no longer are we just building housing estates, but we are building communities too. It will tell them that we will bring a cinema and a leisure centre to the district, which is planned to be open next year in 2024. It will tell them that the power of people is far more important than the power of anything that we have here. And therefore, we will set up panels right across the district to enable local people to make decisions about how money is spent locally. We will continue to support local businesses. Lichfield district, and this is something that we can all welcome, I think, right across the chamber. Lichfield district is on course to be the 4th fastest growing economy in 23-24. That is testament to the businesses in our district who are expanding, who are growing, who are acquiring new talent right here in the district, which should all rightly be very proud of that. And finally, a greenway to link Lichfield with Chasewater and connecting to the brilliant work that Backtrack are doing with their piece of track that they've done there. And actually that for me, not only is that sort of a pet project of mine, because I think it's really important to enable people to get out on their bikes and cycle and walk in a greenway, but also the principle of it, that a council intervenes only when it has to, and then gets out of the way and lets passionate, willing volunteers get on with it, is a really good principle that we ought to look and see other ways. Well, Councillor Norman says it's because they're cheap. Councillor Norman, people are quite often better at bringing things forward than local authorities. And you can look at organisations like Spark in Birmingham, for instance, who have been down to 10 Downing Street, whose model is used nationally as an example of what local volunteers can do because they are passionate and have the expertise. And whilst that is not about cost saving, it is about making sure that, frankly, the council gets out of the way when it can do and intervenes when it has to. Thank you, Councillor Yates.
Thank you, Councillor Norman. You have the 5th question to Councillor Lance. Do you have a supplementary?
Not this time, Chair.
Question 6 you have as well, which is to the Leader.
Absolutely. Can I congratulate him on not missing the deadline to actually respond to the question? So that's a real bonus there for him and his colleagues. But my question is he aware of? I appreciate the answer there, but is he aware of older people as well that are concerned whether their bus pass, I know it can be used as photo ID, but there's quite a few there that older people that I've come across that actually are concerned about what they need, despite all the stuff that the district council is doing. I congratulate them on that. And be interesting to see a report afterwards by the Electoral Commission on the effect of photo ID on the actual turnout of the electorate and so on. But so it's really I'm just asking if he's aware of that problem there. Not asking him to answer it as his responsibility, of course. I'm confident that our officers have done absolutely everything they possibly can within their power, as you say, and yet, yes, there are always challenges that we have, and we address it the best way we can. And I'm sure as Councillor Norman goes, that's more of a national and local issue, but thank you for your question.
And finally, question 7 is to Councillor Smith from Councillor Norman. Do you have a supplementary?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for making that the last question. Keep him here instead of elsewhere, as I understand he wanted to be. I was a bit surprised actually though to see that the Lichfield District Council was proactively seeking, I quote from the response, to end the contract when I'd been told it was the other way around. It was Freedom Leisure that were wanting to end the contract, but never mind. My question is this.
Chair, that is incorrect. Thank you.
Well, thank you for correcting the people who get
Can you make the point of information clear, please? What's the point of information you're making?
Councillor Norman just said that Freedom Leisure was seeking to end the contract. My point of information was that was incorrect in an actual fact. It was the Lichfield District Council that sought to close the contract. Thank you.
Councillor Norman, would you like to continue?
Yes, I just obviously been misinformed in the past by various people. My question is this, that whilst, and I appreciate that Freedom Leisure has had the extra pressures of energy costs, they also have had that extra pressure with the other funded contracts they have with other local authorities in the UK, or at least in England. And I just wondered if the cabinet member can tell me why it's just Lichfield District that has to pack it in, and they have still all these contracts elsewhere. There must be something wrong with districts, surely.
Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Chair. I think that's a great question, Councillor Norman. I think what's happened here is Lichfield District has just taken the proactive decision to preempt what may happen down the line. Okay, when we first contracted out of Freedom, it was an excellent decision by the council. Between the preceding 4 or 5 years, we saved £1.4 million doing that, and managed to reinvest that into both the Priory and the Burnwood Leisure Centres. However, due to COVID and due to other things, we've noticed ourselves, and we've absolutely pushed Freedom as far as we can within the means of the contract. And we've noticed my residents also talking to us and telling us that the Staples Centre is not where it should be post-COVID due to energy costs, etc. And unlike other councils, this council, we're a proactive council, so we took the decision as a cabinet and me to the CEO to talk to Freedom and say, look, we've had enough of this. We want out, and we think we can do a better job ourselves. And even better than that, as my response states, we also took £750,000 out of the deal as well to get out of it. So that's not something that Freedom are going to do voluntarily. So that obviously was us causing that to happen. And that money can also be reinvested back into both Burnwood and our new leisure centre as needed. So I personally think it's an excellent story. Thank you, Chair.
That concludes that item. There's no other comments possible, and therefore I just remind you that we have food and drink on upstairs. Thank you.